there, ready to hit the ice? We are, because we're doing a deep dive on something pretty fascinating in the world of figure skating, same-sex ice dancing pairs.
Yeah, it's a big change happening.
Right, we've got a bunch of articles here all about it. And what's really interesting is that this is about so much more than just, skating.
It really is.
We're talking about challenging norms, expanding opportunities, redefining what partnership can even look like, and all in this sport that's been pretty traditional for so long.
It's true. And what's really exciting to me is that it's not just theoretical.
Yeah.
This is actually happening right now, and it's being led by Olympic champions Gabriella Papadakis and Madison Hubbell.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, come on. These two were rivals on the ice for years.
For years.
And now they're teaming up not to compete, but to totally change the game.
I know. It's huge.
It's a big statement, using their global platform to advocate for same-sex partnerships in ice dancing. And, they're not just talking about it. They're actually out there performing together in exhibitions,
yeah,
showcasing the artistry and the potential of this new type of partnership.
Exactly. And they even performed at the Art on Ice Gala in Switzerland. Can you imagine?
I know, it's incredible.
It's amazing, but their partnership is about more than just making a statement. There's a real need that they're addressing here.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of these articles highlighted this really practical issue within ice dance, and it's a gender imbalance. There are so many more women
than
men seeking partners.
Right.
And Hubbell herself, she was quoted as saying, there's a limit to how many people right now are participating.
Wow.
So this new kind of partnership, it opens up so many opportunities for all of these talented skaters who might not otherwise, have a chance.
Totally, yeah. It's like they're saying, hey, we can change the game and make room for everyone on the ice.
Exactly.
And guess what? Skate Canada is already on board.
That's right.
They're the first governing body to officially allow same-sex pairs in national competitions, which is pretty huge.
It is a huge step. And what's so interesting to me is how recent. This change only happened in 2022.
Really?
That's when Skate Canada made this big groundbreaking decision. So it shows you how much this sport is evolving right now and how much more inclusive it's becoming.
Yeah, and speaking of evolving, one of the things that really struck me was Papadakis' realization about those unwritten rules, those codes that she'd never even questioned before.
I know, it's fascinating.
And skating with Hubbell brought that to light for her.
It's true. Think about it. Papadakis, an Olympic champion, is suddenly seeing this sport she's dedicated her life to from a whole new perspective.
Right.
And it makes you think, what codes are we all just accepting without questioning in our own lives?
It's like those limitations that we don't even realize are there because they've just always been the norm.
Exactly.
But Hubbell's vision for the future is so inspiring.
Yeah.
She dreams of a world where everyone can find their place on the ice regardless of their vision or their identity.
I love that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's about breaking down those barriers, those invisible barriers.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's real hope that this really high-profile partnership won't just inspire other skaters, but also, pressure those international bodies to follow Skate Canada's lead.
Right.
This could be a watershed moment for this whole sport, and it's being led by these two incredibly talented athletes who are using their influence to make a real change.
It's like they're leading by example, showing everyone what's possible when we rethink these traditional partnerships.
And it's worth pointing out that Papadakis, who is bisexual, is choosing to partner with another woman in this groundbreaking endeavor. So it brings another layer of meaning to this partnership.
Absolutely. It goes beyond professional ambition. It's about personal identity, challenging societal norms in this really public way. But of course, I'm curious about the practical side of things.
Yeah.
How are competitions adapting to these changes? I mean, it can't all be smooth sailing, right?
You're right. There are some logistical questions when you start adding same-sex pairs to a system that was literally designed for male-female partnerships.
Right.
And one article mentioned that some people were concerned right away about potential advantages for certain pairings. Like, two men might have an advantage in lifts because of strength.
Oh, that makes sense. I was actually wondering about those lifts. What are they in ice dance, and how could they be a point of contention?
Well, lifts are when one partner is physically lifted off the ice by the other.
Okay.
It takes a lot of strength and balance and trust. Traditionally, the man lifts the woman.
Right.
Now, you can see how this sparks debate when you have same-sex pairs, right? Because those traditional roles are blurred.
So it's not just about changing the rules. It's about rethinking the whole foundation of the sport.
Exactly. And that's where it gets interesting. We're talking about a complete paradigm shift. And that's bound to raise lots of questions and require creative solutions.
Like, how do you judge and score pairs with different body types and strengths fairly?
Right.
I mean, the traditional scoring system was made for male-female pairs.
It's a really important point, and it's something that Hubbell acknowledged. She said, a lot of people said right away, the two men would have an advantage because they'd be better at lifts.
Okay.
So clearly there's some serious conversations and adjustments that need to happen to make sure there's a level playing field.
Yeah, which brings us back to that idea of questioning those codes, those assumptions that we often make, without even realizing it.
Yeah.
This whole shift in ice dancing forces us to examine that and think outside the box.
It does. And what strikes me is how Papadakis and Hubbell are using their platform, their voices, their bodies to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
They're not just talking about it, they're showing the world what's possible, and that's powerful.
It's like their performance is a question in itself. Why not? Why shouldn't same-sex couples have the same opportunities in this sport?
I love that. And that why not can lead to real progress. It makes you look at those limitations that we place on ourselves and others simply because that's how it's always been done.
Right. It's about pushing past those comfortable boundaries, opening ourselves up to those new possibilities.
Exactly. And who knows what amazing things we might discover when we do.
Well, I'm already feeling inspired just thinking about it. It's like they're saying, hey, we can reimagine what partnership looks like right out there on the ice.
Right. It's about expanding those ideas of what's even possible and embracing inclusivity.
Totally.
Celebrating the diversity of human expression in all its forms.
And it's not just a feel-good story. There are some real concrete challenges that need to be addressed as same-sex partnerships become more, common in the sport.
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest questions is, how do you fairly judge and score pairs with different body types and strengths when the traditional scoring system was designed for male-female pairs?
Right, like it wasn't built for this.
Exactly. It's a valid question. And it's one that's going to require a lot of thoughtful discussion and adjustments to the rules.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Like trying to fit square pegs into round holes, the system needs to adapt to this new landscape. And wouldn't this require a huge amount of open-mindedness from everyone involved? I mean, from the judges and coaches to the skaters themselves?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about a fundamental shift in perspective here. It's not just about changing the rules. It's about questioning those really deep ingrained assumptions and biases that we don't even realize we have.
Yeah, it's like we're being asked to step outside our comfort zones.
Yes.
And reevaluate what we thought we knew about the sport.
And maybe even about ourselves.
Right.
Papadakis' comment about those codes he'd never questioned really stuck with me. Think about it. Even at the highest level of her sport, there were still these unspoken rules she hadn't even realized existed until she partnered with another woman.
It makes you wonder what codes we just blindly accept in other areas of our lives. What assumptions are we making about relationships or work or even just everyday interactions simply because that's how it's always been done.
Exactly. And it's not always easy to recognize those codes, let alone challenge them. But that's where real growth happens, both individually and as a society.
I'm starting to think this whole deep dive is less about figure skating and more about pushing those boundaries, about daring to reimagine what's possible.
That's a great point. It's about recognizing that change can be uncomfortable, but it's often necessary for progress.
Right.
And sometimes it takes individuals like Papadakis and Hubbell to come along and shake things up and make us question the status quo.
It's like they're holding up a mirror to society and saying, hey, look at these unwritten rules that we've all just accepted. Maybe it's time we reconsider them.
Yeah, and in doing so, they're opening up this whole world of possibilities, not just for themselves, but for everyone.
I'm curious, though, are there any potential drawbacks? Could there be any unintended consequences to changing the rules so drastically?
That's a really thoughtful question, and honestly, it's something that experts in the field are really debating right now.
Correct.
Some people argue that allowing same-sex pairs could lead to a greater emphasis on athleticism and strength, which could potentially disadvantage, smaller or less physically powerful skaters.
Oh, that's an interesting point. I hadn't considered that. It seems like finding that balance between inclusivity and fairness is going to be crucial as the sport evolves.
Absolutely. And it's going to take a lot of ongoing dialogue and open-mindedness and a willingness to adapt to find solutions that work for everyone.
This whole conversation is making me think about other areas where we could benefit from reimagining traditional partnerships. Like, imagine if we applied this question, the codes approach, to, say, the corporate world.
Oh, that's fascinating. How do you see that playing out?
Well, think about leadership roles. Traditionally, we often see these very hierarchical structures with a single person at the top making all the decisions.
Right, the classic CEO.
Exactly. But what if we challenged that? What if we embraced more collaborative leadership models where different perspectives and strengths are valued equally?
I love that idea. It ties back to what we were talking about with breaking down those invisible barriers and allowing for more diverse forms of expression.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe those unconventional partnerships could lead to more creative solutions and greater success overall.
It's definitely worth exploring. After all, innovation often arises when we challenge those deeply ingrained assumptions and dare to do things differently.
It seems like this whole conversation has come full circle. We started by talking about same-sex ice dancing pairs, and now we're talking about reimagining leadership models in the corporate world. It's incredible how one seemingly small change can spark these much wider discussions about, inclusivity and fairness and challenging the status quo.
It really is remarkable, and it all comes back to that simple but powerful question: why not?
This whole deep dive has been incredibly thought-provoking. It's really made me appreciate the power of individuals to spark change.
Me too.
Papadakis and Hubbell have not only made history in their sport, but they've also ignited this much broader conversation about challenging norms and embracing diversity.
I couldn't agree more. Their story is a testament to the courage it takes to step outside of your comfort zone and question those unwritten rules that have held us back for so long.
And their actions are a reminder that we all have the power to do the same, whether it's in our personal lives or our workplaces, or even just in the way we view the world around us.
Absolutely, and sometimes all it takes is one courageous voice to spark a movement.
So, what does this all mean? I think it means that change is happening even in places we might not expect, and it often starts with individuals who are brave enough to ask, why not?
And who are willing to back up that question with action like Papadakis and Hubbell have done.
Their story is a reminder that we don't have to accept things as they are. We can question, we can challenge, and we can create a more inclusive and equitable world for everyone.
It's a powerful message, and one that I hope resonates with our listeners long after this deep dive is over.
Me too. And you know what? This whole conversation has left me feeling really inspired.
Me too. It's like Papadakis and Hubbell have given us a blueprint for how to challenge those codes in our own lives.
Exactly. And I can't wait to see what other boundaries we can break and what other possibilities we can uncover when we do.
It's amazing to see how they're really using their platform to advocate for change, and redefine what's possible.
And what's even more remarkable is that their journey is just beginning.
It is.
This whole evolution of ice dance, it's still in those early stages.
Yeah, for sure.
There's so much more to explore.
Absolutely. It's like we're watching this whole new chapter unfold right in front of us.
I know. And who knows what kind of ripple effects this will have beyond the world of figure skating,
I know. It's exciting.
What other areas of life will be touched by this?
Right.
It's like they've thrown open the doors and said, hey, let's rethink partnerships in all aspects of life.
Yes. And that's a challenge that I think we should all embrace.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's about questioning those assumptions that are so ingrained and daring to imagine a world where anything is possible.
Absolutely. And just maybe by doing that, we can create a more inclusive and equitable and truly inspiring world for everyone.
Well, that's our deep dive for today.
We hope it's given you some new ideas and maybe inspired you to question those codes in your own life.
Because as Papadakis and Hubbell have shown us, even the most established traditions can be challenged and transformed.
Yeah, and when we do that, we might just discover a whole new world of possibilities.
So go out there, question those codes, embrace those possibilities, and let's all see what incredible things we can create together.